I got a question for all y'all. You like dinosaurs? Because today we're talking about a big dinosaur, Pantlaza sun-flavored. And yes, he is sun-flavored, do not ask. But Pantlaza is an interesting lizard, and he has very quickly become one of my favorite commanders to play. Anytime him or another dinosaur enter the battlefield under your control, you may discover X, which is basically just broken Cascade. No, it's not better Cascade. No, it's not improved. No, it's not fixed. It's broken Cascade. If Cascade was already broken, this card's even more broken. So, when he enters the battlefield, you may discover X, where X is the toughness of whichever dinosaur you have played, but you can only do that once per turn. Now, it should be noted that that once per turn is a soft once per turn. As long as you can reset Pantlaza by, say, blinking him, then you'll be able to do that as many times as you want. And don't worry, we are going to be blinking him quite a bit today. In today's build, we are not building dinosaurs. There will be dinos in the deck, do not you worry, but we are not building a dinosaur deck. We are building a deck that is going to burn our opponents to death and probably upset them quite a bit with what we have access to. But first, let's talk about how we're going to be getting Pantlaza onto the board with our 10-card ramp package. We have a beefy 5 mana cost commander, so Core Cartographer can get a plains out of our deck, Scampering Surveyor can get any basic land out of our deck, Mirror Convert can tap for any of the mana our deck wants to produce at the cost of 2 life, Honored Heirloom can be used to keep our reanimation players honest while also getting us mana, Wayfarer's Bauble can get any land out of our deck onto the battlefield tapped, same with Search for Tomorrow while also being a wonderful turn 1 play. Wild Growth is a turn 1 ramp spell we have access to because it enchants a land. Farhaven Elf can get any basic land from our deck onto the battlefield into play tapped. Wood Elves can get a forest from the deck into play untapped. And Rampant Growth can get any land from our deck into play tapped. So, we have a decent ramp package. 10-card ramp is, you know, it's enough. It is enough because what our deck wants to do more than anything is not ramp. We actually only need to play Pantlaza once, and if we play too many ramp spells, then we will end up creating a problem for ourselves. Let's go ahead and get into the reason as to why. It's because the most dense part of our deck is this 20-card deep blink package. I'm just going to go ahead and pull the wool over from your eyes. This is not a dinosaur deck. This is a blink deck. The goal is going to be to play Pantlaza once and then have his effect activate roughly 5 to 10 times a turn, probably creating a scenario where our opponents die as a result of this. So let's talk about why this is going to happen. But first, let's get into our blink spells and talk about why we've chosen the ones that we did. Most of the reason is budget, but Settle Beyond Reality is a 5 mana removal spell that can also exile a creature you control and then put it on the battlefield under your control, so we can get rid of a problematic card with the best way to get rid of problematic cards while also blinking our commander, which will cause it to discover X again, causing us to go into our deck and get more cards. Then we have Against All Odds. 4 mana card lets us blink our commander, and then it lets us reanimate any card in our graveyard that's an artifact or a creature with mana value 3 or less, and that can get things like our Wayfarer's Bauble back if we want it, or an Honored Heirloom if the reanimator player got rid of it. Then we have Pegasus Guardian, a 6 mana creature, but its adventure side says we can exile a creature we control and then return to the battlefield under our control. And the Pegasus side doesn't really matter that much. Now, granted, we cannot cast the adventure side of this off of Discover, so don't attempt to do that. It's not going to work. You'll just get weird looks from everybody at the table. Scroll Shift is one of the best options for blinking in the deck, as even though it's a 3-mana blink spell, it does give us the ability to draw a card. Also, it lets us blink an artifact or enchantment as well, which can be relevant in certain builds. Then we have the Gale Power Mage. If it attacks, exile a creature, and then return to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. So we have a way to take this flying creature, ram it into somebody's face, and blink our Pantlaza later on into the game. Flicker Wisp, when an ETB ETBs, exile a permanent, and then return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Glimmer Point Stag, same thing. It's got exile a permanent, return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. These cards are good for getting rid of problematic things on the board, as well, just for a turn, as well as in certain scenarios where our commander gets stolen because our deck is so commander-centric. Somebody might yank the commander away with like a Nicol Bolas or something. These cards can take your commander back and put it back firmly on your field. Then we have Far Traveler. Commanders you own are Teleportation Circle. At the beginning of your end step, exile one target tapped creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. So if we swing with Pantlaza and don't have a blink spell in hand, this will let us blink our commander again. Astral Drift. When you cycle it, you can exile a creature and put it back onto the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step, or if you cycle another card while it's on the battlefield. So if you wanted to take this deck in the position that had more of the cycling lands, this would be a really cool addition to that, as every time you cycled a land, you would blink one of those cards. But we're using it just so we can use a 3-mana blink by cycling it. Justicar's Portal lets us blink a creature. Slip on the Ring lets us blink the creature and then get a ring temp trigger, which doesn't matter too much for us. Flicker of Fate lets us blink a creature, but it lets us blink anything. So again, it can steal our commander back from stuff. Acrobatic Maneuver can blink a creature while also letting us draw a card. Gilladane lets us blink a creature once a turn by tapping it and paying 2. Then Long Road Home lets us blink a creature and bring it into the battlefield with a 1/1 counter, which is important because then it means that our commander can discover 5 instead of discovering 4. Nahiri's Resolve, speaking of 5-cost cards, at the end step, exile any number of non-token artifacts or creatures you control and then put them back on the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of our next upkeep. This can let us keep our commander nice and safe from all of our opponent's stuff. It also has a really, really, really stupid interaction we'll get into later. Then we have Lazelle's Acrobatics. It lets us blink every single creature on our board, and if we roll high, it can blink those cards twice. Semester's End also blinks all the stuff on our board, and both of these blink until the end of the turn, so these let us dodge board wipes. Now, here's the next and most important part of the deck. These are the Restoration Angel and the Icewind Stalwart. Both of these cards say that when they ETB, blink a non-warrior or a non-angel, and then put it back onto the battlefield immediately. These cards are important as they are part of a 3-card infinite combo we can use to win the game. Let's go ahead and just talk about why that is here in a second. Let's go to our next section. These are our burn cards. These are how we're going to win. Any one of these are going to be our primary method of winning. Our secondary method is obviously turning Dinosaur sideways at people and killing them that way, but Woody Roastmaster, if another creature enters the battlefield under your control, deal 1 damage to each opponent. Impact Tremors does the same thing. War Storm Surge does it to any one target, so we can kill creatures, but it does it based off of the power of the card. So if we blink our commander, that's 4 power. And Quintorius Cond lets us deal 2 damage to everybody and gain 2 life every single time we cast a card from exile, or play a card from exile, casting a card from exile, rather. So when our commander blinks, it does grab a card and cast it from exile. So Quintorius Cond, every time we get a card from the top of our deck with our commander, will burn everybody for 2. It can also discover 4 if we need to get that effect on its own, so that is a good thing that he has access to as well. So the infinite combo is if Restoration Angel is on the board, it can blink Icewind Stalwart, and then when Icewind Stalwart touches the board, it can blink the Restoration Angel. Every single time one of these touches the board, they will exile the other and then immediately put it back on the board, creating an infinite loop. If Impact Tremors or Woody Roastmaster or Warstorm Surge is on the board, this will create an infinite combo where our opponents die to these 3 cards. We create infinite damage, and if nobody can interrupt the loop, then we win. And if they do try to interrupt the loop, we can thread in one of our instant cast blink spells to start the loop 1 card higher on the stack, so our opponents will still die. So either they're going to die to us blinking our Dinosaur a bunch or turning them sideways, or we have access to this infinite combo that can also kill everybody as well, if we find ourselves in that scenario where we need it. But we need to be able to find cards in our deck. And there's two ways we can do that. We can either draw cards or discover into them because of the type of deck we're running. So let's talk about that latter portion first. This is the Cascade section. This is the area where we have the discover trigger happen a lot, or, you know, its older cousin Cascade happen as well. Walk with Ancestors can take any permanent from our graveyard and put it into our hand. We can use this if our commander becomes too heavily costed. But it also discovers 4 right after we play it, which is, you know, just our commander's ability again. Throes of Chaos has Cascade and Retrace, so anytime that we are at a loss of what to play, this will let us just Cascade immediately from the graveyard, discarding any land, and we can cast it from our grave any number of times. Annoyed Altasar has Cascade, so it will grab any card mana cost 6 or less from the top of your deck and cast it immediately when you play it, but the Annoyed Altasar also is a Dinosaur, so if our commander's on the board, this will give us a Discover trigger of 5, and then a Cascade trigger that will find a 6 mana or lower spell. Geological Appraiser has Discover 3, so when you cast it, you immediately get that Discover trigger. It does count when you cast it from the Discover from the commander as well, so that does work because it is considered a cast. Bloodbraid Elf has Cascade, so when you play it, you can Cascade into any card that is mana cost 3 or lower. Geological Appraiser and Bloodbraid Elf are the same card, they just wear different pants. Natural Reclamation lets us blow up any artifact or enchantment while also cascading to get anything that we want as well. Buried Treasure, we can sack it to add a mana of any color, so it's very, very decent one-time ramp. It's basically, you know, a treasure. Then we can exile it from the graveyard to discover 5, which gives us that Cascade trigger. And then Curator of Sun's Creation, if we discover, you may discover again for the same value, but this only gets to happen once per turn. So, this card is one of the few things that we want to blink with our multi-blinks so that we can get multiple Discover triggers every single turn and hopefully win the game off of them. Then we have a very, very anemic 5-card draw package, but most of that is because we are digging through our deck so fast with our other cards. We don't need specific draw stuff. But Rumor Gatherer, anytime a creature ETBs, scry 1. If it's the second time this ability has resolved, draw a card instead. Scrying 1 off of this every time we blink lets us curate the next card we are going to cast if we need to. Then we have Garrick's Pack Leader. Anytime a creature ETBs with power 3 or greater, draw a card, which is just perfect for our commander because he has power 4. Harmonize lets us draw 3 cards. It's included because it's a 4-cost card that we get off of the Discover ability. Garrick's Uprising, anytime a creature with power 4 or greater ETBs, draw a card. It also gives them trample. Just a perfect card for a deck like this. And then we have Return of the Wild Speaker. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-humans you control, or give a mini Craterhoof Behemoth ability to the 29 creatures of our deck. It's only for non-humans, though, so you won't be able to get it off of Geological Appraiser. So the reason that, like I said, the reason our draw package is so small and anemic is because we are digging through our deck at rapid speed with blink spells, so you don't need as much draw. But I'll talk about some of the draw you can run when we get to deck upgrades. But next, we need to talk about the most important part of any deck at all, the removal package. This is how we're stopping people from winning the game while we are fighting them, beginning with Bronzebeak Foragers. ETB, exile a card from every opponent until this leaves the battlefield, but we can also put those cards in their graveyard and gain X life based on the mana value of the cards we take away. Rex Sage can ETB to blow up any artifact or enchantment. Ravenous Sailback does the same thing, but it's also a dinosaur, so our commander sees it. Meteor Golem's in the deck, everybody. Did you know that? I've also been informed something very important. I did not realize this was true, but apparently Meteor Golem with tits is a thing. So my sexuality is complete. I know what I'm into, and I'm here for it. Meteor Golem with tits is going to be going in every deck that I ever build from now on. So just be aware of that. If I have a Meteor Golem in a deck, it probably has boobies. Just so you know. But anyway, let's move on to the rest of the deck, starting with Oblivion Ring. ETB, exile a non-land permanent. When it leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card back to your opponent's control. We're running this because while this type of effect is normally not great unless it's, on everybody, like with Bronzebeak Foragers, we can blink this card and get rid of the permanently, because The exiling effect and the return effect are two separate lines of text. Whenever you have two separate lines of text on a card, there is room for you to thread a card into its abilities on the stack. So, Oblivion Ring gets its first trigger from its ETB. You can thread in a card after it grabs its target and throws it away. Oblivion Ring will blink, and the card will never be able to come into the board ever again because Oblivion Ring never got to see its second line of text. Generous Gift can blow up any permanent if it's it can get rid of lands, it can get rid of anything. Wonderful card. If you're playing a white deck, you should be running this. Decimate blows up an artifact, creature, enchantment, and land. All these things, every single one of these things. And we can cast it at instant speed because of our commander's blinking ability. We just cast it whenever like when you use the Discover from the blink, it casts things at instant speed no matter what. So, Decimate is a tricky card. You want to make sure that you are not blowing up people's lands willy-nilly, so like only target the ramp player, unless somebody's got a Maze's End or a Rogue's Passage or a Glacial Chasm or something that like you specifically need to get rid of as a land. Otherwise, don't touch their lands. Nixthos and Gaia's Cradle are good lands to blow up, though. Return to Nature blows up an artifact, enchantment, or gets rid of a card in a graveyard instant speed, and Acidic Slime can get rid of any artifact, enchantment, or land, while also being a death-touchy creature to do battle with the forces of evil. So, we have some of our removal slotted away in the Blinking and and the Cascade packages. So the removal package is actually about 11 or 12 cards. Our draw is split between the Cascading package and the draw package, so that's more like 13 cards, despite being looking as anemic as it is. Then we have this little piece here. We have one more piece of recursion that is not just the one that gets permanents, that is a Cascade, or Discover card, rather. We have Timeless Witness. When it ETBs, return any card from our graveyard to our hand. So, if you use the Timeless Witness and you cast something like Lae'zel's Acrobatics, the Timeless Witness can see Lae'zel's Acrobatics in the graveyard because it has to resolve for its effect to happen. So, you just get this card back and blink your commander. This gives you a nigh infinite source of blinking. As long as you've got the mana to sustain constantly blinking the Timeless Witness, then you have access to constantly activating Lae'zel's Acrobatics or Semester's End and just ripping through your deck at lightning speed. Then we have a couple board wipes in the deck. Austere Command, because it can get rid of artifacts, enchantments, creatures that are big, creatures that are small. And you choose two of these, and it's wonderful. Then we have Undo Inversion, blow up all non-land permanents. This card is wonderful because we can actually cast Undo Inversion and then cast something like Semester's End to protect all of our creatures from destruction from the Undo Inversion. So even though we are setting everybody back to ground zero, we have the ability to dodge it so long as we have ramped sufficiently into it. Since the deck is a blink deck, we will be casting a lot of our ramp cards for free very quickly, so it's very likely that we'll get to that Semester's End combo pretty often. It happens fairly often when I play the deck, and it's very infuriating for people who have been at my tables. But then we have the last section. We have a couple of big dinosaurs, and it would not be a dino deck, or it wouldn't be a Pantlaza deck if there were not at least some dinosaurs in here. So let's talk about the ones we've chosen and why. Starting with Verdant Sun's Avatar. Anytime it or another creature ETBs, gain life equal to its toughness. I hope you can see how much life we're going to be gaining from this thing. This thing does a lot of work for us. It's also a dinosaur, so it triggers our commander. Burning Sun's Avatar deals 3 damage to an opponent and then 3 damage to any target creature anytime it ETBs. So if our commander is not on the board, we can just blink this and blow things up. Or if our commander is on the board, we can blink this to blow things up, because our once per turn blink doesn't have to be Pantlaza. It can be Burning Sun's Avatar if Pantlaza is on the board, giving us access to another source of burn and another source of removal. Then we have Itali. Anytime it attacks, exile the top card of every player's library, then cast any of those cards that have mana costs associated with them. So you can't get lands off this, but you can get access to everybody's stuff. Itali is a wonderful card, and I adore him. But we need to then move into the land section of our deck, starting with the basics. 19 basic lands, 8 forests, 7 plains, and 4 mountains. We have a lot of basics in here because we know we're going to be getting them for free with things like Farhaven Elf. Then we have the Cascade lands. These are the lands you saw me use in the Landcat deck, if you watched that video. But each of these lands comes into play tapped, unfortunately, but later in the game, we can sack them to discover 4. If our commander is on the back foot and we need access access to easy cards now, then we can use these hidden cards to gain access to anything at the same rate that our commander would give us access to them. We don't have a blink spell in our hand, we can dig for a blink spell with a hidden volcano, nursery, or a courtyard. These are as far into the tapped lands as I'm willing to go, with one other exception. Not really big on tapped lands when I can help it. But then we have the dual lands of the deck, with the exception being the Sacred Peaks. Enters the battlefield tapped, but it is a typed land, so our core cartographer that I talked about earlier can grab this because it is a mountain plains. Sungrass Prairie and Mossfire Valley are both filter lands, Cinderglade and Canopy Vista being Tango lands, which are of course searchable with our cards like Wood Elves and Core Cartographer. Then we have the fetching lands as per usual. Terramorphic Expanse, Evolving Wilds, and Escape Tunnel are all the same card. They grab any basic land from our deck to thin our deck and also guarantee that we have access to all the colors we need. They are tapped lands, but they are reasonable ones because they do give us free deck shuffles. Myriad Landscape also lets us ramp when we use it because it gets any 2 basic land cards out. Then we so can the Corrosion Verge. It can grab any 2 cards, a forest and a plains, put them onto the battlefield. This counts your Tango lands as well, so you can grab things like your Sacred Peak and your Canopy Vista automatically with Corrosion Verge and be set up for the rest of the game very, very well and handedly. Then we have Promising Vein, Shire Terrace, and Naya Panorama. These are all the same card. They come into play untapped. You can sack them to get any land that our deck needs that is a basic onto the battlefield tapped. Ending us with the Exotic Orchard and the Command Tower as our run-of-the-mill Omni lands that can be any type that we want. And with that, that is it for the Pantlaza deck itself. A very, very, very powerful lizard that we managed to get as a $15 deck because the deck is $15.67, with 28 cents of that being taken up by the commander itself. But what if you wanted to upgrade it? What if you wanted to push the deck a little bit further? Well, going section by section, if we were to upgrade the deck, in the big Dino section, we would add in the new and old Galta, the 12 mana ones that get a bunch of stuff. Galta and Maverin as well, because the token ETB works for our commander. I would add all of those, as well as the new Itali that is just a blinkable version of this effect. I've won so many games off of blinking Gruul Itali. It's insane. But that's as far as I would go in the Dinosaur package. I wouldn't go very much further than that. As for the Burn package, the only thing you'd really need to add in here are the Paleontologist card that was in the Foulhorn deck. It's like $30, but if you just get the precon, that's gonna cover that cost very handedly. It says anytime you cast a card from exile, burn somebody for the mana cost of the card. It's just a 2 mana extra burn card we have access to that I run in my build. I would also run the new War Leaders. I forget what it's called, but it's a card that does the same thing as Impact Tremors while being Boros. In the comments section, let me know what the name of the card is. I run it in my build, and I forgot what the name is because it just came out, and we get product at such a high rate, it hurts me. Then in the Blink section, I would run an Eerie Interlude, and I would get more Blink spells that I could lower the mana curve of on these Blink spells. So things like Astral Drift, I don't run in the full power version of this deck. I run things like Ephemerate in here. Like, I try to get as many 1 and 2 mana Blinks as I can, and try to remove as many of these types of effects as I can. These are great for the budget version because you would need access to anything you can get in the budget that you have. But if you are upgrading and you are giving yourself a few more dollars to deal with, then things like Ephemerate are going to do you good. Just look for any card that has the effect of exile a thing you own and put it on the battlefield. A Scryfall, search for that, and then you will be A-okay and good to go. Search by mana value, and you will be good. You don't need more board wipes than what's already in the deck. Not really, because you just want to be pressing forward more often than not. And as for the Cascade section, as you upgrade the deck's power, the only thing in this section that you probably are going to keep is the Curator of Sun's Creation, because these are going to be replaced by a lot more draw cards. So when we go down to the draw section, I run the Garrus Uprising in my build, and that's it. After this, I have Arishkar's Expertise, I have Tribute to the World Tree, I have Elemental Bond, I have Guardian Project, all of the cards that say when a thing ETBs, draw a card. I'm running every copy of that kind of effect that I possibly can. I've also got a Conjurer's Closet and a Teleportation Circle in the Blink section as well, so I've got more access to this type of effect. I've also got MEL, which gives you repeatable Blink, which is really important. And Preston as well, the rabbit that makes illusions of stuff, because that gives you a second trigger of your commander. Note, the commander comes out as an 0-1, so you only discover one, but that doesn't matter because you can layer the triggers with Preston so that when the second Pantlaza touches the board and its trigger, the trigger that it has, you can choose not to activate it. So it just gives you a second loaded Pantlaza trigger that is available for when you blink Pantlaza again during that turn. Then we have, or not blinking during the turn, sorry. What I mean to say is the Preston token goes on the stack, and you have the choice of whether or not you are going to be using that Pantlaza trigger or another one. So you can just get the other trigger. And again, it's a weird way to thread it, but it is possible. Get a judge to help you with it. The timing is weird. As for the ramp section, I run very, very close to this section here, but I also put in things like Nature's Lore and Farseek, as opposed to things like Mirror Convert. Solemn Simulacrum is in here instead of the Scampering Surveyor. But other than that, this is very close to what I run in the full power version. I go up to Ewit. I have Timeless Witness and Eternal Witness in the deck, so I can double up on that effect. And in the removal section, I've added in things like Get Lost instead of Acidic Slime, and Stroke of Midnight instead of things like Decimate, so that I've got easy access to, and Beast Within as well, so that every single card I have has a lot of variance in what it can blow up. As for the land section, what I would probably do in here is move down on the fetching lands, keeping Caverge, keeping Myriad Landscape, and keeping the Promising Vein, Shire Terrace, and Naya Panorama, but I would go up searchable lands, because you get so many searchable lands with your blinking triggers. So going up a Triome, going up Shocklands, obviously you'd put them in any deck, but going up the Surveil lands, anything that has these types, the deck really wants to see, because the deck can rip them out of the deck so fast. It is very important to have easy access to ripping those cards out of your deck. As you upgrade the deck's power and consistency, you can actually go down on the hidden lands. They are in here in this build because they fill in a gap the deck has, which is a need for more draw that I needed to stuff basically into the land section. But if you're playing the full power version of the deck, you don't need these as much. Put untapped searchables in the deck so you have an easier way to get your commander out on turn 4. The ideal is getting the commander out on turn 3 with the Soul Ring, but let's go ahead and say you're not running a Soul Ring or you just didn't draw it. Commander out on turn 4 is the other goal. Also, I would recommend, from personal experience in the full power version of the deck, please put Kadama's Reach Cultivate in, and that new Cultivate that's coming out in Modern Horizons. So the reason I run them is because there are so many times with a 5-mana commander that you miss that last land. You miss that last land drop that you need to start the deck's engines. So please put those in the deck. They are castable off of your commander if they need to be later in the game, but the most important thing is they make it to where you don't miss the land drops with Pantlaza, and it's so easy to miss the land drops with Pantlaza. So just do yourself a favor, put them in. That said, I hope you guys enjoy the deck. This is one of my favorite decks of all time that I've ever played. I love Pantlaza Blink. I took apart my previous Blink deck to build this one, and I was never upset about that. I had an Azorius Blink deck IRL, and I built it as a challenge to myself, and then this commander came out, and all the cards from that got scrapped and thrown into here, and I now have 2 Blink decks. I have this, and I have Galadriel Elves as a Blink deck. And both of those have just warmed my heart so much towards the Blink strategy more than anything else. They are not as obnoxious as doing the Brago multiple triggers a turn thing that really, really gets under people's skin with Blink. Your turns are lightning quick with this Blink deck, and you have access to all kinds of silly, nutty, multi-effect turns. while a multi-effect turn does not require you to have a ton of decision making, so that turn is not very, very long, and other players are not, basically just watching you play Magic. You can get your turns done really, really quickly. You have a lot of defensive options because of the blink spells. I adore Pantlaza. Please, please, please try Pantlaza Blink if you haven't already. This list, just hit the TCG player link. I'm not sponsored by them. I wish I was. You can get the entire deck for $15. Shipping is probably going to turn that more to like 30 or so, but even then, that is a small price to pay for the amount of fun you get out of a deck like this. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and as always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Nabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, Sagitt, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.